A shrinking lifeline, U.S. military aid to Ukraine faces constraints. The United States has been a steadfast supporter of Ukraine since Russia launched its invasion in February 2022. Billions of dollars in military aid have flowed into Ukraine, bolstering its defenses and enabling it to resist Russian aggression. However, cracks are beginning to show in this lifeline of support. Recent aid packages have shrunk in size, raising concerns about the long-term sustainability of U.S. assistance. The Pentagon, facing its own supply chain issues and dwindling stockpiles, is increasingly forced to make difficult choices about how to allocate its resources. This shift in U.S. support has sparked alarm bells in Kyiv and beyond. Is Washington's commitment to Ukraine wavering? What will this mean for the war's trajectory? And what are the broader geopolitical implications of a potentially weakened Ukraine? These questions are at the forefront of discussions among policymakers and analysts as the conflict enters a critical new phase. From open checkbook to strategic calculation, the evolution of U.S. support. In the initial months of the war, the U.S. response was characterized by urgency and a willingness to provide virtually any assistance Ukraine requested. Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger anti-aircraft systems, and other weapons flowed across the border, helping Ukraine repel the initial Russian assault. But as the conflict has dragged on, and the costs of this support have mounted, Washington has adopted a more calculated approach. The Biden administration is now grappling with the reality of depleted stockpiles and a defense industrial base that is struggling to keep pace with demand. Production lines are ramping up, but it will take time to replenish depleted inventories. This new reality has forced the Pentagon to prioritize certain weapon systems over others, leading to delays in delivering some promised aid to Ukraine. This shift has not gone unnoticed in Kyiv. Ukrainian officials have publicly expressed their frustration with the delays and urged Western allies to expedite deliveries. They argue that timely military support is crucial for Ukraine to maintain the momentum in its counteroffensive in liberate occupied territories. Empty arsenals, the Pentagon's supply chain struggle. The war in Ukraine has exposed a critical vulnerability in the U.S. military: its dwindling stockpiles of key weapons and ammunition. The sheer volume of munitions that Ukraine has expended in its fight against Russia has far outstripped expectations. For example, the U.S. has sent Ukraine millions of rounds of 155mm artillery shells, a critical weapon system in this conflict. However, the U.S. Army now finds itself facing a shortage of these shells, raising concerns about its own readiness in the event of a conflict. The problem extends beyond artillery shells. The U.S. has also sent Ukraine a significant portion of its Stinger anti-aircraft missiles and Javelin anti-tank missiles. While these systems have been highly effective in countering Russian forces, replenishing these stockpiles will take years, given current production rates. The Pentagon is now engaged in a frantic effort to ramp up production, but it is facing significant challenges. Defense contractors, many of whom downsized after the end of the Cold War, are struggling to find qualified workers and secure raw materials. These bottlenecks are slowing down production and raising questions about the long-term sustainability of U.S. military support for Ukraine. Adapting to scarcity, Ukraine's shifting battlefield tactics. The shrinking flow of U.S. military aid is forcing Ukraine to make difficult choices on the battlefield. Ukrainian commanders, accustomed to relying on Western-supplied artillery, are now having to be more judicious in their use of these weapons. This has led to a shift in tactics, with Ukrainian forces increasingly relying on maneuver warfare and smaller, more mobile units to exploit gaps in Russian defenses. Ukraine is also placing a greater emphasis on drone warfare. Unmanned aerial vehicles, both armed and unarmed, have proven to be a highly effective weapon system for Ukraine. Drones are relatively inexpensive, readily available, and can be used for a variety of missions, including reconnaissance, targeting, and attack. This adaptation will be critical for Ukraine's long-term success. As the war grinds on, Ukraine will need to find ways to fight smarter, not harder, if it is to prevail against a larger and more heavily armed adversary. The U.S. can play a crucial role in this adaptation by providing Ukraine with the training, equipment, and intelligence it needs to effectively employ these new tactics.